Hello, friends, and welcome to our in-depth study through the book of Ezra. Today we're concluding with chapter 10, where the people respond to Ezra's prayer by taking decisive action to address the intermarriage crisis and restore their covenant with God. In this final chapter, the narrative builds on Ezra's confession in chapter 9. A large group gathers around Ezra, moved by his grief, and a leader named Shekaniah proposes a plan. Make a covenant to divorce the foreign wives and send them away with their children. Ezra leads an assembly where the people swear an oath, then commissions an investigation. Over 3 months, they identify and resolve the cases, listing those involved. It's a somber but committed effort to obey God's law, emphasizing that true repentance involves costly change to preserve holiness. The big idea for this lesson is repentance demands radical obedience. This big idea stresses how genuine turning from sin requires concrete, often painful actions to align with God's will. In the broader book of Ezra, this fits as the culmination of the restoration story. The book begins with physical return and temple rebuilding in chapters 1 to 6, shifts to Ezra's leadership for spiritual renewal in chapters 7 to 8, and now resolves the heart issues exposed in chapter 9. Through it all, Ezra portrays God as faithful to his promises, using leaders and community to reform his people from exile's aftermath, ensuring their survival as a holy nation. To support this, we'll cover 3 main events from the text. First, the people's confession and Shekaniah's proposal. Second, the assembly, oath, and commissioning of leaders. And third, the investigation, divorces, and listing of the guilty. Let's begin with the first event, the people's confession and Shekaniah's proposal. We'll read the relevant verses from Ezra chapter 10, verses 1 through 5, in the New International Version. While Ezra was praying and confessing, weeping and throwing himself down before the house of God, a large crowd of Israelites, men, women, and children, gathered around him. They too wept bitterly. Then Shekaniah, son of Jehiel, one of the descendants of Elam, said to Ezra, "We have been unfaithful to our God by marrying foreign women from the peoples around us. But in spite of this, there is still hope for Israel. Now let us make a covenant before our God to send away all these women and their children, in accordance with the counsel of my Lord and of those who fear the commands of our God. Let it be done according to the law. Rise up, this matter is in your hands. We will support you, so take courage and do it." So Ezra rose up and put the leading priests and Levites and all Israel under oath to do what had been suggested, and they took the oath. Now, let's observe what's happening. As Ezra prays publicly before the temple, a diverse crowd, men, women, children, joins in bitter weeping. Shekaniah, from a lay family but not implicated himself, though his father is later listed, confesses on behalf of the people and proposes divorcing the foreign wives and children to renew the covenant. He urges Ezra to lead, promising support, and Ezra immediately administers an oath to the leaders and all Israel. To explain and interpret this event, the confession echoes Ezra's prayer, showing communal ownership of sin. Intermarriage violated Deuteronomy 7 and Exodus 34, risking idolatry and covenant breach. Shekaniah's hope stems from God's mercy, as in Lamentations 3:22-23. The proposal aligns with the law, though divorce was generally discouraged, Malachi 2:16. Here, it's seen as necessary to remove corrupting influences, similar to removing leaven in Passover. Children are included, underscoring the radical nature, family ties secondary to covenant purity. Ezra's oath formalizes commitment, binding the community legally and spiritually. Historically, this addressed assimilation threats in a small post-exilic group surrounded by hostile neighbors. Tying this back to the big idea, repentance demands radical obedience. We see the people moving from sorrow to action, proposing severe measures to obey. For personal application, think about addictions or toxic relationships that entangle you. Like pruning a vine in nature to prevent disease spread, cutting them off can be painful but essential for health. This challenges how we behave. In the empty places in your life, such as compromised habits, don't stop at regret. Commit to bold steps with community support. Let's turn now to the second event, the assembly, oath, and commissioning of leaders. Here are the key verses from Ezra chapter 10, verses 6 through 14. Then Ezra withdrew from before the house of God and went to the room of Jehohanan son of Eliashib. While he was there, he ate no food and drank no water, because he continued to mourn over the unfaithfulness of the exiles. A proclamation was then issued throughout Judah and Jerusalem for all the exiles to assemble in Jerusalem. Anyone who failed to appear within 3 days would forfeit all his property, in accordance with the decision of the officials and elders, and would himself be expelled from the assembly of the exiles. Within the 3 days, all the men of Judah and Benjamin had gathered in Jerusalem. And on the 20th day of the 9th month, all the people were sitting in the square before the house of God, greatly distressed by the occasion, and because of the rain. Then Ezra the priest stood up and said to them, "You have been unfaithful. You have married foreign women, adding to Israel's guilt. Now honor the Lord, the God of your ancestors, and do his will. Separate yourselves from the peoples around you, and from your foreign wives." The whole assembly responded with a loud voice, "You are right. We must do as you say. But there are many people here, and it is the rainy season, so we cannot stand outside. Besides, this matter cannot be taken care of in a day or two, because we have sinned greatly in this thing. Let our officials act for the whole assembly. Then let everyone in our towns who has married a foreign woman come at a set time, along with the elders and judges of each town, until the fierce anger of our God in this matter is turned away from us." Observing the text, Ezra fasts in mourning, then calls a mandatory assembly with penalties for absence, forfeiture, and expulsion. Amid heavy rain in the 9th month, Kislev, around December, the people gather distressed. Ezra commands separation, and they agree but propose a phased process due to weather and scale, appointing officials to handle cases town by town. Interpreting this, the assembly enforces unity. Penalties reflect seriousness, like excommunication in Deuteronomy 17. Rain adds misery, symbolizing judgment, Hosea 6:3 for positive rain. Ezra's charge echoes the law, urging honor through obedience. The people's response shows willingness but practicality. Repentance isn't impulsive but organized. Appointing officials decentralizes, ensuring thoroughness. This balances zeal with wisdom, averting chaos. Connecting this to the big idea, repentance demands radical obedience through structured commitment, as in the oath and plan. Imagine a team in sports admitting doping and agreeing to a full audit. It's systematic reform. For application, this applies to community accountability. Perhaps in a group facing ethical lapses, establish steps with leaders. This text challenges what we believe. True change requires structure, not just emotion. In the empty places in your life, like ongoing temptations, build accountable plans to obey radically. Let's examine the third event, the investigation, divorces, and listing of the guilty. We'll read from Ezra chapter 10, verses 15 through 44, quoting key parts. Only Jonathan son of Asahel and Josiah son of Tikvah, supported by Meshullam and Shabbathai the Levite, opposed this. So the exiles did as was proposed. Ezra the priest selected men who were family heads, one from each family division, and all of them designated by name. On the first day of the 10th month, they sat down to investigate the cases, and by the first day of the first month, they finished dealing with all the men who had married foreign women. Among the descendants of the priests, the following had married foreign women. From the descendants of Joshua, son of Jozadak, and his brothers, Messiah, Eleazar, Jarib, and Gedaliah. They all gave their hands in pledge to put away their wives, and for their guilt, they each presented a ram from the flock as a guilt offering. And it lists more priests, Levites, singers, gatekeepers, and Israelites, totaling about 110 names. All these had married foreign women, and some of them had children by these wives. Observing closely, a small opposition is noted, but the majority proceeds. Ezra appoints family heads for a 3-month investigation from Tevet 1, January, to Nisan 1, April. The list includes priests, 17, Levites, 4, singers and gatekeepers, 10, and lay Israelites, 86, with some offering rams as guilt offerings per Leviticus 5 for unintentional sins. To explain and interpret, the opposition shows not unanimous agreement, adding realism. Reform often faces dissent. The process is judicial, examining cases individually for fairness. The list, like Chapter 2's, authenticates the event and holds accountable. Divorces, though harsh, aim to protect from idolatry. Children likely went with mothers, a tragic cost. Guilt offerings signify atonement. blending justice with mercy. This concludes the book on obedience, not triumph, reminding that holiness requires vigilance. This event ties to the big idea. Repentance demands radical obedience, seen in the thorough implementation despite costs. For personal application, consider a forest clearing invasive species. It requires persistent removal for native growth. Similarly, root out entangling sins methodically. This challenges how we think. Obedience may involve loss, but it leads to purity. In the empty places in your life, like lingering regrets, pursue full resolution through committed action. In conclusion, let's restate the big idea. Repentance demands radical obedience. We've explored this through the three main events: the people's confession and Shekaniah's proposal, the assembly, oath, and commissioning of leaders, and the investigation, divorces, and listing of the guilty. These demonstrate how communal resolve turns confession into lasting change. Reiterating personal application, this text challenges how we think, believe, and behave. It shifts thinking to view repentance as active, not passive, strengthens belief that God honors costly obedience, and calls us to behave with determined follow-through. In the empty places in your life, whether relational entanglements or spiritual compromises, embrace radical steps for covenant restoration. May He plant deeply in your barren places, yielding abundance you can't yet imagine. Now, take a look at the show notes for questions to reflect on. You can use them in your small group or just take a few moments to reflect on your own. If you like this study, please like and subscribe for more just like it. Until next time, grace and peace.